Good morning, everybody. I'm Dal speaking. Hear me? Okay. Can you catch my voice? Okay. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I would like to talk about philosophy of technology and science, I think. Okay. This is the sixth cost of mine. Okay. Here I already talked about this one. The philosophy of technology has three approaches: epistemology, anthropology, metaphysics. I already talked about that last week. Okay. Then I say about the difference between ancient technology and modern technology. Okay, you remember that? Ancient technology, they use the source as it is. Okay, but in modern technology, you have to transform it, and then you can modify it, and so on and so on. Please pay attention to Wang Miaoyang's writing about the analogy of the human and technology with spider and web, and also cells and snail. Okay, I think you already know about that. Then technology results that are important and in one sense, while avoidable from another, because technology results very important in our life. Okay, so but please avoid that not useful for our life. Okay, then you can avoid it. What about the family of and then African and so on. And then opinion from philosopher Dosen about technology. What is the opinion about them about technology according to Dosen? And also Dosen write something about technology. Please read it carefully. Then technology as an important phenomenon need to be deeply reflected. Okay, you can read it in my handout last week. There are differences between classical curricular culture and Roman Hellenistic culture. Okay, this is quite different. And then the condition of philosophy changed with the existence of three schools leading to the philosophy of the 20th century. There's phenomenology, positivism, and what next? And then pragmatism. Okay, positivism come from Venus cycle. Okay, I think you remember that. The extent of philosophical school that is most dominant in the philosophy of science, because philosophy of science are very, very by philosophical school. Okay, so the philosopher school, the most dominant in the philosophy of science. So philosophy of science depend on the philosophical school at most. Okay? That's why, because philosophical schools is very talking about theory and also praxis and so on and so on. You can see that there is a debate between technological determinists and social determinists on a problem about technology. There are two groups, technological determinists and social determinists always debate about technology. Some of them say that technology is neutral, but another, no, technology is not neutral. Okay? With good reason, Donidi disagree that technology is neutral. So according to Donidi, technology is not neutral. I think you can have the reason why Donidi have that idea. That is, technology is not neutral. Okay? Because, technology is mediator. So sometimes mediators agree with this, but also not agree with this, and so on. So that's why Doniti said that technology is not neutral, because technology is the mediator between them. Okay? Please read it carefully. There are good opinion on technology. Jacques Ellul, Marcus, Jargon, Habermas, Husserl, Heidegger, and Doniti. They have their own opinion on technology. Okay? I think you already read it carefully, and then you will digest that idea, then you will have an idea about what their opinion about technology. Okay? Now, I would like to continue our course, Philosophy and Science, New Philosophy of Science. Okay. The new philosophy of science is a combination of the philosophy of technology with the philosophy of science. So the combination about the combination between technology and science make it a new philosophy of science. Okay, because there are debate about that. Then we have this philosophy that is the new philosophy of science. So it is more inclined toward praxis. What is praxis? Praxis is the process by which a theory, lesson, or skill is enacted, embodied, or realized. Broadly speaking, practice may also refer to the acts of engaging, applying, exercising, realizing, or practicing ideas. You have the ideas, then you have to make it action and make it applied and exercise, realize, and so on and so on and so on. So we say that that is actually the idea that you have to make it active, apply it, and so on and so on and so on. Okay? So it is more inclined toward practice and appreciate the human body than the old theoretical philosophy of science. What does it mean, appreciate the human body? I think you understand about that. This new philosophy of science arises from the disagreement with the old scientific perspective, which is independent of being disembodied, disembodied, idealistic, and abstract. Okay? The old philosophy of science tend to be theoretical and conceptual. Okay? This is the old philosophy of science. They are more theoretized and conceptualized. While the new philosophy of science is more concrete, practical, perceptual, and embodied. Embodied means in Indonesia, I think it's mewujudkan, to be real. Okay? So this is different between philosophy, the old philosophy of science and the new philosophy of science. Is quite different, because there are a lot of debates about technology and science, neutral and not neutral. Debate about that, then then arise the new philosophy of science, okay, as the opposite of the old philosophy of science. Okay. So, what is the relation between philosophy and technology and philosophy and science? Philosophy of science and philosophy of technology have several differences. This is difference between philosophy of science and philosophy of technology. The origin of its philosophy. The philosophy of science was originally dominated by positivism. Okay, the school of positivism that rise from Vienna Circle. Okay, so it became analytic and ignored the technologists. Okay, so that is philosophy of science originally. Meanwhile, the philosophy of technology is more dominated by various practical philosophies, such as phenomenological and pragmatist. Because there are three souls: phenomenological soul, and then positivism soul, and pragmatism soul. Okay, so this is the difference between philosophy of science and philosophy of technology. Okay, the origin of its philosophy is quite different. The philosophy of science tend to be dominated by theory. I think it's very easy to understand because in the first originally philosophy of science originally dominated by positivism. Positivism, please see the Vienna Circle. Okay, please see that. Okay, so it is very easy to understand the second part of the difference between philosophy of science and philosophy of technology. Okay, while the philosophy of technology tend to be more practical. I think it's very easy to understand about this. While the philosophy of technology tend to be more practical, but philosophy of science dominated by theory. Okay. So the view that technology is an applied science has the logic of being science implies technology, implies social affairs. So from science, then you will get the technology. From technology, then you will get the social affair. because Tony Day said that technology was it change the culture. Okay, so technology implies social affair. If you use technology, then we have the social affairs. So if technology comes from science, then all negative impact of technology must be resolved by referring back to the source, namely science. Because science implies technology. If in technology you have the problem, then you have to go back to the source, that is science. So that it needs to be questions. Is it true? Based on the opinion of several philosophers, they question that both matter. So according with this logic, science implies technology, implies social affair. So there are a lot of philosophers debate about this. Okay, because according to Heidegger and Donidi, it must be technology implies science implies social affair. Okay, it's according to Heidegger and Donidi. I would like to talk about this next. Okay. So, according to Donide, the interface between the philosophy of science and the philosophy of technology is instrumental realism. So, this is the intersex between the philosophy of science and the philosophy of technology. That is instrumental realism. What is it? Instrumental realism is the thought that reality is seen in real terms through instrument, experimental activities, and more broadly in the context of praxis and perception. Okay, so if you want to see the something unseen, something like cardiac, then you use, some sort of instrument, and we call it by stethoscope, or what is the name? Okay. If you want to see the moon, then you use the telescope. Okay. Okay. And more broadly in the context of praxis and perception, really, reality is displayed and perceived through the instrument. Okay. You can see what happened inside the computer, then you see, our instrument. If you want to see your blood tension, then you use the instrument. If you want to see what, then you use instrument. You use microscope to see the very small, to see the bacteria, or to see what is very, very small, and it is very difficult to see by your eyes. Then you use telescope. Microscope. Okay? So the microscope is the instrument. Okay? It comes from the technology, and then you can see what happened in that small thing. Then you can analyze, and so on and so on, and then you will get the science. So technology, science. Okay? Instrumentalism is the thought that reality is seen in real terms through instrument, experimental activities, and more broadly in the context of praxis and perception. What is praxis? I think I already talked about that. Okay, reality is displayed and perceived through the instrument. Okay. Science is the embodiment of science technologically. The embodiment of science and technology, namely in the form of instrumentation, which is an important reflection in the philosophy of science and technology philosophy. Okay, thanks very, very the same what I'm talking about, the relation between philosophy of science and philosophy of technology. Because, you know, the interface between technology and science is instrumentalism according to Nidhi. Okay? So, instrumentalism is an interface of the philosophy of science and philosophy of technology. Technological tools or instrumentation bring the world of life closer to the world of science. Science is not pure theory or rational inference. Okay, because you know here, technological tools or instrumentation bring the world of life closer to the world of science. Okay, so you can use instruments, then you will see the word of life. Then from that, then you will get the science, because you can see what is very, very different to see. Maybe far from here, maybe it's too small. Okay, so maybe it covered by something, you know, like the our cardiac, okay, like our lungs. Then you can use what we call it instrument used by the doctor. Okay, so science is not pure theory or rational inference. The old philosopher of science were philosopher of mind, who neglected the function of the body in gaining knowledge. Okay, neglected the function of the body in gaining knowledge, where the mind was regarded as a bodilessness. Okay, this is the old philosopher of science. Okay, the old philosophers of science, we call it as philosophers of mind. Okay. Meanwhile, the new philosophers of science are body philosophers. So we call them as a body philosophers for the new philosophers of science. But the old philosophers of science, we call them as philosophers of mind. Why we call the new philosophers of science by body philosopher? Because they prioritize the body and practice perception. They are derived from the phenomenological tradition. Okay, because they use experiment, they use investigation, and so on and so on. So they can derive from the phenomenological tradition. Okay. Now, in the Platonic tradition, that is, the mind takes precedence over the body. Mind takes precedence over the body. So the idea that technology is an applied science is transmitted from the Platonic tradition. Because Platonic tradition say that the mind takes precedence over the body. So first of all is the mind. So the idea that technology is applied science is transmitted from Platonic tradition. So, Platonic tradition believe that mind must be the first thing. That's why from this tradition we get this logic that this science implies technology implies social impact. Is that true? Okay, let us talk about this. Okay. So this idea is currently questioned because if technology comes from science, all negative effect of technology must be resolved by referring back to its source, that is science. So the logic is science implies technology, implies social impact. It is come from the Platonic tradition because Platonic tradition, the mind takes precedence over the body. Okay? This is the logic of from Platonic tradition, science, technology, and social impact. Several philosophers have taken issue with this, including Donite and Heidegger. Okay. Donite and Heidegger don't believe this logic. Okay. On the basis of philosophy, Donite asks that the interface between the philosophy of science and the philosophy of technology is instrumentalism, what I'm talking about before. Okay? Instrumental realism is the idea that reality is seen in real terms through instrument, instrumentivity, and more broadly in the context of practice and perception. I already talked about this. Okay. So, in the book, What Computer Can Do, the philosopher Dreyfus mentioned that a computer does not have a human body, so it cannot think humanly. He said that computer and artificial intelligence cannot think because there is no body movement. Okay. With this word, it criticized. It does not agree with this statement. Okay. It are that because the computer body is different from the human body, the computer mind must also be different from the human mind. I will talk about this in a philosophy of artificial intelligence. And then, Donide, regarding computer as an entity that seems to be independent, even though, according to Donide, the technology tools are what they are. only if, in the case of computer being used by user, they are not completely independent. This is the criticism from IT about the idea of Dreyfus. Okay? So don't need to have the word there. And then another philosopher before philosopher Dreyfus, he come from the group Bade philosopher. Okay, Bade philosopher, because they are also mind philosopher. And then there's another philosopher, Patrick Hillan. In his book, Space, Perception, and the Philosophy of Science, state a theory of science that is perceptual and praxis requires instrument. So the role of instrument is very important according to Hillan's thought. Here, philosopher Patrick Hillan. He also the Bade philosopher, same as Dreyfus. Okay. Hillan states that through technology, what was previously unperceivable become perceivable. Okay. So through technology, what was previously unperceivable may be unseeable, become perceivable. Okay. So scientific entities that cannot be perceived by the senses, that is previously only in the realm of theory, can be perceived through technological means. So if you see something that you can see it very clear, then you use technological means, you can see it very clear, because that's according to theory. Okay, so you use instrument that is technological mean, then you will get more clear everything that are not clear before, because you only use your sense, your eyes, your ear, and so on and so on. Okay? So that's why Hillan stated that there is no distance between the word of science and the word of life, because you use technological mean, you use instrument. Okay? The two of them meet in a technology manifestation. Okay? So the word of science and the word of life meet in the technological manifestation. Okay? It's very easy to understand about this. So it is emphasized that perception occurs through technological tools and the use of instruments. On the other hand, hermeneutically, perception also occurs through reading the text of the data, namely the measure of technological devices. This perception does not pass through the body as in Husserl and Merleau-Ponty thought. Please. If, for instance, in EKG, what was EKG? If a doctor want to see our lungs or our cardiac, then they use instrument. Okay, but if you use that instrument, then you have to read what happened according to the tool. For instance, if you want to see the activity of a mountain, you see just only what is it? In Java we call ore. Okay, then the scientists see that ore. Then he tried to read it. Oh yes, it is very high explosion, this and so on and so on, so on. Okay, so that is why also occurs through reading the text of the data, namely the measurement of technological devices. The measurement of technological devices. So technological devices write some things very, very difficult to understand for us, but for the scientists, oh, it is very easy. Okay. So in this case, so it is emphasized and perception occurs through technological tool and the use of instrument. On the other hand, hermeneutically, that is tightly close, very, very close, very, very important to see something, also occurs through reading the text of the data, namely the measurement of technology devices. You have to read the measurement of technology devices. You have to read that. If you don't, for instance, in result of the Dosen, you can see that the portrait of the lungs. If I see that, oh yeah, this lungs, that's all. But from a doctor say that, oh yeah, it must be water, or it must be bacteria, or it must be something, I don't know. Okay, because it is clear, it is what they can read it very, very carefully, very, very easily. But for me, it's very, very difficult to read that measurement of that devices. Okay, so here, please, reading the text of the data, namely the measurement of technology devices. Please put it in your mind. Okay. Helen denies that there is a distance between the word of science and the word of life. Okay, so this is the philosopher called Helen. Okay. And then this is another philosopher of mine, Ian Hacking, in his book, Representing and Intervening, add that experimentation plays an important role in scientific discovery. Here, even though he is a philosopher of mind, but he had said experimentation plays an important role in scientific discovery. Here, Hacking attracts practical, technological, and perceptual interest through observation. Okay. Hacking think that the role of observation and instrument is central, so that there is little discussion of perceptual matter. So this is hacking. He actually is a philosopher of mind. Okay. So science thinkers are too busy talking about theories. Science thinkers are too busy talking about theories and representation of reality. But don't talk directly about experiment, technology, or the use of knowledge to change the world. I think it's very, very important to understand. Please read it carefully. Okay? So science which become experimental through instruments is the meeting point between the philosophy of science and the philosophy of technology. This is the idea of Ian Hacking. According to Don Ide, he said that meeting point between philosophy of science and philosophy of technology was the instrument realism. Okay, so according to hacking through instrument, I think it's the same. Okay, because they try to discuss about this, about the relation between science and technology, then it converts to say that instrument is very, very important in this case. Okay, so please see, according to philosopher Refus, and then philosopher Ilan, and then philosopher Ian Hacking, and then philosopher Donite, and then philosopher of Heidegger, and so on, and so on. Please, you can make it important decision if you read their idea about the relation between science and technology. Okay? Then is another philosopher, Robert Ackerman. In his work, Data, Instrument, and Theory, came to instrumental realism, and the same as Don Ide ID. He stated that the instrument provides a data domain which requires a hermeneutic process to interpret the data domain. See, it is the same as before. State that the instrument provides a data domain which requires a hermeneutic process tightly close to interpret the data domain. See here. I said here, according to Helen. Okay? According to Helen. Okay? Ackerman said that the use of instrument form a better data domain with increasingly sophisticated instruments. See, sophisticated instrument. You know, the microscope using lens, yeah. But if you use, I don't know, this new microscope, very, very sophisticated instrument. So they can use it very, very good for catching the data in the small, very small thing. And then if you use a telescope using, I don't know, maybe they use a special lens, then they can see what happened in the moon very close. Okay? Because they use a sophisticated instrument. So this is Ackerman. Ackerman said that the use of instruments form a better data domain with increasingly sophisticated instrument. Okay. It is art that the development consequences of instrument indicate progress in science, and this would be impossible if there were no advance in technology. Okay. So you can use e-tilang. It's very important, e-tilang, because they use the sophisticated instrument to catch the driver who does not or do not aware of the rambu-rambu lalu lintas traffic rule. Okay. So it's very easy to use that instrument that the driver may be, Okay. From what was discussed by the philosopher above, it can be concluded that contemporary science is a science that has emerged technologically. Science is technologically embodied science. The relationship between science and technology is not only accidental, but essential. This way of thinking of science is necessary for an adequate understanding of the philosophy of science, namely more comprehensive philosophy of science. Okay. So after you say the relationship between science and technology, then you will go to the relation between computer science and technology. I think very easy. Okay, so that's why our department is computer science and electronic, because using electronic you can get the sophisticated technology. You can make robot, you can make HP, and so on and so on and so on. Because inside your HP is electronics term, an electronics thing, I think, inside it. You can see chip, you can see everything. Okay, so they only use a very low currents, electrical current. Okay, so that's why here, what matters between computer science and technology? Okay. Okay. Now, Heidegger wrote in the question concerning technology as follows. This is Heidegger. What is dangerous is not technology. What is dangerous is not technology. There's no demonstration that is devil of technology. but rather there is the mystery of its essence. The essence of technology as the standing of revealing is the danger. When the standing reign in the mode of interming, it is the supreme danger, but where danger is, grows the saving power also. Please read it carefully. What is danger is not technology. This is what Heidegger says. There is no demonstrate. Demonstrate I read in a library in libraries. The field of technology, but rather there is the mystery of its essence. What is the essence of technology? What is the essence of technology? Okay, as this timing of revealing is the danger. When the standing reign in the mode of entreming, it is the supreme danger. But where danger is, grows the saving power also. Okay, because you use HP for hope, then our government use something like that to control that is hook or not hook. Okay. So, but where danger is, grows the saving power also. Because you are to be a computer scientist, then you must be read this one. Where danger is, grows saving power also. Okay, so if you see your product were dangerous, then you have to find out how to save your product, not for something very dangerous. Okay, so this is your responsibility as a computer scientist. Okay. From Heidegger's discussion of the essence of technology, it is found that technology precedes science. Here, technology precedes science. So the logic is technology implies science, implies the word. So the essence of technology is not technological. Technology is a perspective and experience that shape the way we act. The shape that shape the way we act, how we use tool and how we relate to the world of life, so that technology shapes the direction of movement of science. Okay, so here I read very carefully. Technology is a perspective and experience that shapes the way we act. That shapes the way we act. How we use tools and how we relate to the world of life. So that technology shapes the direction of movement of science. So what is the movement of science? Then you use technology. Okay, so technology shapes the direction of movement of science. Okay, because you see that if you turn, was it material, then it will be electricity. So according to this technology, then the science say that you study about the electricity. Okay. So that's why, according to Heidegger, thing that technology shapes the direction of movement of science. The direction that is the direction of movement of science is shaped by the technology. Okay, so that's why Heidegger say that technology precedes science. Okay, technology precedes science. So from technology, then you will get science. Why? Because technology shapes the direction of movement of science. Please, how to get theory about what's it? Yeah, let us Edison and so on, Jim Watt and so on and so on, according about the power of was it? If you boil the water, then you will get a power. Okay. So Jim Watt tried to make a machine moved by boiling the water. Okay. Heidegger first discusses tool and how tools reveal the worth of humanity in the world of life. Heidegger, the first being and time. Why Heidegger the second occurred because Heidegger found that the search for ada through mengada, asking for ada, namely Dasein, was inadequate and had no start to start from ada itself. Here, Heidegger the first discussed tool and how to reveal the word. But in second, talking about the set of ada and mengada. I already talked about that before, maybe in the first or second my course, my lecture. Okay, ada through mengada, asking for ada. What is ada? What is being? What is sign in Germany? Sign. Okay, that sign was inadequate and had to start from ada itself. So here is Heidegger the second. Okay. In field of technology, Heidegger's first writing, Being and Time, draws attention to the role of tool in human world relation. Here, in the field of technology, Heidegger's first writing that is Being and Time, draws attention to the role of tools in human world relation. So what is the relation between human and word? So they have tool in between human, tool, word. Okay. So what is the role of tool in this case? In this relation between human and word, what is the role of tools? Okay, so Heidegger, the first writing, see that examining how tools express this existential relationship through their characteristic, while in the writing of Heidegger II, views technology as a way of disclosing being. That's because after he turned to the question of being on being. So I think it's very, very difficult to understand, but I hope you will read it carefully. Okay? So Heidegger the first and Heidegger the second writing. Okay. So in the first, he talked about the tool which have make a relation human and word clearly, because in that case, tools have the role in relation between human and word. Okay, but in the second, so technology as a way of disclosing being. That is because after he turned to the question of being on the being. Ada, pada, mengada. Okay, so after maybe Heidegger see or read the debate about being on the being, what is ada, what is mengada, and so on, then he turned to this idea. That is because after he turned to the question of being ada on the being, ada, mengada. What is ada? Okay, so please read it before about this. It has been mentioned that the third approach of philosophy of technology is metaphysical. Remember, they are the first. What is the first? Epistemology. Okay, what is the second? Okay, and then second, what's it? I think it is anthropology. Okay, so epistemology, how to prove or to get technology and so on, so on, so on. Then second is anthropology, what about the relation between human and philosophy and technology. So be careful using technology for human. And then the third is metaphysical here. So it has been mentioned, look, that the third approach, the first, the second. So the first epistemology, second is anthropology, and the third is metaphysical. It also means it is ontological approach. Okay, so it has been mentioned that the third approach of philosophy of technology is metaphysical, which means it is an ontological approach. The ontological approach is what we call the third approach, namely the metaphysical approach. Heidegger is concerned with our orientation toward technology and not the technology itself. Okay, So here Heidegger is concerned with our orientation toward technology, orientation about technology, okay, and not the technology itself or the form of technology. Okay, in order to uncover technological phenomena, according to Heidegger, an understanding of technology must be freed from the inadequate and subjectivity level of interpretation, namely instrumental and anthropological interpretation of technology. He wrote of the following type of interpretation. Okay, this is the Heidegger's thinking about technology. Okay, so please don't go to the technology itself, but the orientation toward technology, what your orientation to technology. So what is the use of technology? What is important of technology? What is, but not technology itself. Okay. Okay, because according to Miao Yang, say that web and spider. So don't talk about the web, but the orientation of web for spider. Spider use this web to catch, their food. Okay? So please remember it. Please think with this. So that's why Heidegger is concerned with our orientation toward technology and not the technology itself or the form of technology. Okay? So if we make analogy between human and technology with web and spider, please don't talk about the web. If you touch that web, then your finger will be catched by that web. But what is the orientation of that web according to spider? Oh yeah, this is the tool for the spider too. Okay, so this is Heidegger is concerned with our orientation toward technology and not the technology or the form of technology. Okay, in order to uncover technological phenomena according to Heidegger, an understanding of technology must be freed from the inadequate and subjective level of interpretation, namely instrumental and anthropological interpretation of technology. He wrote of the following type of interpretation. See, please remember what Miao Yang writing. Okay? Because he make an analogy between human anthropology and web and spider. Okay, cell and snail. See? Okay. One says, Heidegger thinking, one says technology is a mean to an end. The other says technology is a human activity. The two definitions of technology belong together. Okay, so someone say, oh, technology is a mean of to an end. Oh no, technology is human activity. So the two definitions of technology belong together. For the possess and procure and utilize the mean to them is a human activity. Okay. The manufacture and utilization of equipment, tool and machine, the manufacture and use things themselves, and the need and end that they serve all belong to what technology is. Okay, so this is what Heidegger thinks. Okay, Heidegger thinking. Okay, so the manufacture and utilization of equipment, tool and machine, the manufacture and use thing themselves, and the need and end that they serve all belong to what technology is. All belong to what technology is. What is it? All belong to what technology is. What's it? See, the matter utilizing of equipment, tools, and the manufacture and use things themselves and the need and end that they serve. The need and end that they serve. What's it? And the need and end that they serve. Because, technology is the mean to an end. Technology is human activity. So according to this, then Heidegger says something like this. Okay? The whole complex of this contrivances is technology. Technology itself is a contrivance or in Latin an instrumentum. Note, Heidegger juxtaposes instrumentum with the word Einrichtung, which translates to contrivance. Because Heidegger, I think, is Germany. Okay. Okay. So the truth of Heidegger is inconvenient, which is raised through enlightenment or disclosure. Compare it with the truth as explained in the previous lecture, namely scientific truth, philosophical truth, and pragmatic truth. Note also that entities always appear or exist in a certain way, depending on the structure of the. Please read it carefully. Okay. This is Heidegger singing on technology. So, according to Heidegger, the present era of or history of Ada that applies now is the era of technological understanding, computer science, regarding existence where there is understood or seen from an instrument aspect only, namely Ada is understood for its use for another purpose. Heidegger will look for what is ontological through what on this. Okay, so I think please read it carefully. Okay, from the discussion both cause and effects, Heidegger introduced the word poiesis, put forward, which include the meaning of putting forward what did not exist. Physis, which is a kind of poiesis, but in the sense of presenting itself as revealing itself without human interference. Play this physis is a Heidegger's poiesis. Here is what Heidegger introduced, the word poiesis, put forward, bringing forth. Okay, bringing forth, which include the meaning of putting forward what previously did not exist. I think, please, if you read it, you remember that what is unseen using instrument, then you can see clearly. So put forward, bringing forth, which include the meaning of putting forward what previously did not exist. You know, because it is very small, then you can see it. So there is not exist. But you use instrument, then you can see this. Then it means that you put forward. Okay, please remember this. Okay, physis, which is a kind of voices, but in the sense of presenting itself as revealing itself without human interference. For example, before you see the ulat, then you will see kepompong. From kepompong, then you will see a butterfly. You know, this is revealing by itself. Without instruments, then you will see the butterfly come from the kepompong. Okay, you can see kepompong from the ulat. Okay, this physis is the highest voices. Okay, physis which is a kind of voices, but in the sense of presenting itself as revealing itself without human interference. This is physis. Okay, you can see something, but it is not because not your activity, not you use some sort of instrument. It is physis. But if you use instrument, Heidegger called it poiesis. Okay, so this is what Heidegger introduced. Okay, poiesis and physis. Poiesis put forward, which include the meaning of putting forward what previously did not exist. Okay, or you don't have the chair, then you make it. Then that exists chair. So putting forward. Okay, you use some sort of I don't know, in ticker or whatever, then you will have the chair. So there is no chair. Then you make it, put forward using wood and so on and so on. Then you can get chair. So that exists, chair. Because it's very small, then you can see, then you use microscope, then you will see if it exists. So this is voices. But physis, no, it is presenting by itself, revealing by itself. Okay, so something like ulat to be, kepompong kumpung to be, and so on. You don't interval of this. Okay, this is what Heidegger introduced. Notice what a craftsman could create does not reveal himself, but is revealed by human intermediaries such as sculptor, painting, something like that I call you craftsman create. Okay, does not reveal himself, but is revealed by human. So you use then you will have chair. Okay? Notice what a craftsman create does not reveal himself. So maybe a chair. Okay? Chair does not reveal himself, no. But is revealed by craftsman using maybe, I don't know in English, by using peso or watum or whatever is it. No. Okay? So putting forward is bringing what is hidden, non-hiddenness. Yeah. What is hidden to non-hiddenness. Okay? So because it's very small, you can see, then you use microscope, you can see it. So putting forward is bringing what is hidden, non-hiddenness. This is aletheia, which is non-hiddenness or the unveiling of truth. Okay? So according to Heidegger, the word technology comes from the Greek word techne, which means not only the activity and craftsmanship of the hand, but also the art of the mind and fine art. Techne is associated with episteme, so techne involves practical knowledge, while episteme involves exact theoretical knowledge. Okay, episteme, then you study about epistemology, how to get knowledge. You have the method, you have the way, and so on and so on. So, according to Heidegger, techne is associated with episteme. Okay, so techne involves practical knowledge, while episteme involves exact theoretical knowledge. See, please, if you read it very good, and you have to relate it to my lecture before. What episteme, then you will have epistemology. Techne, then you have technology. So, according to Heidegger, the word technology comes from the Greek word techne. Epistemology comes from the word episteme. According to Heidegger, techne is associated with episteme. So techne involves and so on and so on. Please read it carefully. Okay, it is time up. So I give you task, the task, the third. In the early days, philosophy had a scientific characters. Explain why this is so and name the philosopher who caused it. Okay. Try to explain why it is called speculative philosophy and who originated it and how this philosopher views. In defining philosophy, Rappaport using philosophy of X try to explain what is meant. is what that is meant by philosophy of action. Because you already have what philosophy of science according to Teliangi, then try to write down the division of the philosophy of computer science according to Teliangi, which define the philosophy of science using the rule from Rappaport, that is philosophy of X. Okay, so Rappaport have the rule philosophy of X to try to talk about philosophy of something, and then we already have the definition of philosophy of somebody. Teliangi then use this to define philosophy of computer science. Next step in the scientific method, according to Don Ide, the definition of technology says that technology has characteristic, state that characteristic and explain its one. Okay, please, this is the last task because I already gave you task 1, task 2, task 3. Because all of this submit before midterm examination. Okay, so I will correct it carefully and then add to your work in examination, then you will get the mark of your activity in this lecture. Okay, I think it's time up. I think last week no more lecture because next week no more lecture because I think this is last one. So in the 7th lecture I will give you in the first of the lecture in the post UTS. Okay, thank you very much. And good day till next examination. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry how to put it down because my assistant maybe is coming. Okay, he's coming. So I hope he will try to put it off. Any question? If you ask about how to submit the task, please send to my assistant. Then my assistant will be give to me, and also I will give him problem in examination. Maybe tomorrow, because tomorrow I will give the lecture to the regular class. Okay.
Excuse me, sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Is it okay if I ask it in Bahasa, sir, or in English?
According to our...
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, according to our Mrs. Annie Kartika, it should be in English language. But in Java, in Indonesia, for me, it's okay, no problem. But according to Mrs. Ani, Ani
Oh,
Kartika, he said that it must be in English, okay. So for me, it's very, very simple. In English, okay. In Indonesian, is okay. But according to our chief of department, say that should be in English. Okay?
okay, then, sir.
Yeah, it
I'll
up to
ask
you. It up to
English.
you.
Okay, okay, I'll ask in English, sir.
Okay,
Uh,
up to you.
yeah. So last week you said, sir, that if I haven't submit my previous assignment in semester, I will submit it to your assistant, sir. Where should we submit it to assistant? Is it through your assistant's email or?
I think in assistant email because I don't have the link between my computer at home with this
Oh,
system because I already retired, so I
oh,
don't have
okay.
I don't have the way the link to this system. Please send to my assistant, then my assistant will give you manually to me because I live very near here, just on the maybe uh, 500 meters from here. So my assistant will send it to me at home. Okay.
Can we get your assistant's email, sir? Because we don't have it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you may ask to him. Nah, minta itu, dia minta apa? Untuk bisa ke situ. Kalau ngirim tugas,
Oh iya iya, saya sudah bisa.
ya dia udah jual.
Lewat semester aja nanti dikirimnya.
Halo,
Bagaimana?
Lewat
Ya.
semester. Tugas
Oh,
2.
yang tugas 2 minggu lalu, Pak.
Ya, tugas 2 dan tugas 3. Ya.
Oh, nanti lewat semester, Pak. Baik, Pak. Baik.
Oh, semester seperti kemarin.
Oh, baik,
oke,
Pak. Ya. Terima kasih, Pak.
ya ya.
Sama-sama.
Any question? Because this is the last course for me. Because next week it will be a midterm examination.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Excuse me, sir.
please.
I would like to ask about maybe by any chance you could be able to share the slides
Yeah.
through Cmaster so that we can be able to access it, all of us, not just one person that's going to be receiving the material, but all of us. So is that possible if you could share the slides to Cmaster?
I don't know. Maybe you can ask to our
Yes,
assistant.
this question is directed specifically to your assistant.
Ya, please. Kalau dia mau ngirim apa-apa,
Tugas.
ya.
Ya,
Ya.
untuk apa? Untuk
Apa?
apa materi slide-slidesnya
Oh, saya
Slide.
supaya kita bisa mengaksesnya, Pak.
Ya, nanti tak kirim.
Jadi nggak cuma satu orang doang yang dapat. Jadi kita semua dapat mengaksesnya gitu.
Mungkin ketua kelasnya siapa ini? Nanti saya kirim ketua kelasnya.
Oh, ketua kelas nggak tahu.
Ini bikin aja ketua kelas. Ada grup nggak ini? Mas,
Ya, bagaimana?
ada grup WA nggak?
Oh, nggak tahu saya.
Coba nanti tak kirim materi lewat semester ya. Kalau enggak nanti Mas Tejo saya kirimin ya. Via WA aja biar cepat. Biar
Ya
cepat.
sudah, tidak apa-apa, tidak apa-apa.
Ya.
Asalkan itu dia bisa nge-share ke kita semua gitu.
Ya. Mas Tejo ya, nanti saya kirim ya.
Oke, Pak.
Ya,
Baik, Pak, terima kasih. Maaf mengganggu.
sama-sama Mas.
Okay. Thank you very much.